We are live.
Hockey Nation fans, welcome back to another special edition of the Hockey Nation Live Show. This is you, Sir Coach Friendship, back in the house, and we have to go all the way. I think we're still in Texas, Michael Devillano. Are you there today? Still
Yeah,
there?
we're enjoying the waterless, electricityless, one measly snowfall falling apart Austin.
What's
Yeah,
the
it's
weather
crazy.
at that moment?
It's just cold out, but it's not. There's been no snow since like Monday.
That's
It is what it is. It's struggling.
That's awesome. Like you say, everybody look at us right now. Usually you see only two people. And then suddenly a Friday morning, we have three people because we have another special guest with us. A guy love the sport, love hockey, love everything about hockey. He's a fan of the Philadelphia Flyers. And also he's the man. Now, honestly, you may be the only one I know did all the outside game, and you've been there most all of them. And then this weekend you have a two game in Lake Tahoe. That's the first time where I believe it's outside of the a team. I think
Yes.
so. I think it's state where I have no hockey, honestly, NHL team, and then it's this weekend, and then we bring someone where he can talk about this and also his experience. So welcome, Ross Cohen. Directly, I think you are in Philadelphia, or
I'm in South Jersey, but close to Philly. And, actually last year's technically was outside of it in the Cotton Bowl, even though it's in Texas. So they're starting to branch out now and doing that a little bit more. But yeah.
that's awesome. So welcome, part of the Hockey Nation Live Show. We can wait talking about all your experience in hockey and everything you do. And before we start, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you fall in love with
Sure.
the game, and also what you're doing now.
So I grew up on Long Island, and so everybody's like, well, why weren't you an Islander fan? And that's because I'm a little bit of an older guy. I'm in my mid 50s. So I got into hockey a little later than baseball, but that's normal in the States. No one in my house was really a hockey fan. My brother a little bit. He's older than me, but not a lot. So I had to pretty much teach myself, or Bill Chadwick really kind of taught me watching Ranger games. And so the Rangers were the team I zoomed in on first in 72, and they made it to the Cup that year. They lost, but that was my base. So then I became a Ranger fan, and the Islanders came in after that, and I was not a fan, right? But I went to games. I lived 20 minutes from the Coliseum. So that was like my upbringing, and then my upbringing in hockey. 21 years ago now, I started sportsology.com. We started in 2000. So, that's been a
Jeez.
journey, and that's for a lot of other sports besides hockey. But hockey soon became my favorite, even over baseball. Although I still love baseball. Don't kid yourself. Just simply because when I would interview players, the players were great. The sport was very welcoming to me, and one of the first things I did, and that was with Shane Malloy, and we did Hockey Prospect Radio forever on Sirius XM. We were part of that early cast there, and I'm still on, so I've been there from the beginning. Is that we do prospect work. And the funny thing about that is back in those days, so like 01 was like my first draft. And I remember somebody came up to us and they said, hey, what do you guys do? And there weren't a lot of people at the draft. It's not like now,
Yeah.
And we said, hey, we cover prospects. And they were like, well, why would you do that? Nobody cares.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
And just look how the world and the landscape has changed
It's all
over the years. It's crazy, right? So, you have to have a sense of humor about things too.
So I mean, I think as both Coach Frenchie and I have coached at the AAA level.
Yeah, I have never coached. I played media games. I don't even pretend I can coach hockey. I probably could manage baseball, but then I probably would still stink, even though I know a lot.
And so I think for us prospects, to us, it's kids we knew.
Right.
Like either minor pro, or they didn't do anything. So it's always interesting. And I think I always was a student of it. What got you interested in prospects? Because for us, it was like, hey, these are people we know, and we like to understand how you get someone 13 that becomes a pro at 20. What was it about prospects that you were interested in?
Well, I would say it still started with baseball in the sense that, yes, my team, the Mets, won a World Series when I was like 6, going on 7 in 69. So I was really into it. But then, after that, they would bring up a lot of young players. Even for me, Seaver kind of grew up in my timeline. That was my favorite player. So I would always like seeing young players and young players develop in any sport. And I always seem to gravitate towards them rather than, maybe a veteran that got traded to the team. And even if he had a big name, I would always kind of root for the homegrown guy. So that became that. And so then when I did start working with prospects, I would always interview them. And so now that's something that I still stay grounded to because I love the honesty in these interviews. I like tracking the guys and see how they do and where they go, the same way you like coaching them. And I find I learn a lot more about prospects. Yes, I watch them. I go to a lot of tournaments. I've been in Canada a lot and I go to States a lot. I'll go to the under 18s in a few months. So I do those things, but I do it in concert with still interviewing and staying in touch with these guys because I feel like they teach me too. They don't realize it sometimes, but they do.
Absolutely.
What they tell me about other players, what they tell me about themselves. And so I find all of that fascinating. I'm not a big analytics guy, and I'm not going to bash analytics. It's just not my thing. I look at more of the mental side and all of these other things, and put it all together in writings that I do with, I write with Elite Prospects, my own site. And then also just when it comes to the draft, because I do a lot of draft work on SiriusXM too.
I love it. Yeah, and I think that resonates with me. I don't know about Coach Frenchie, but for us, we look at players and teams, and the analytics are there, and we both are, we understand and watch analytics, but it's an element. I don't know what you think, Coach Frenchie. I think there's what's interesting about analytics is that, like baseball, it's brought in, I think, a lot of new people to watch the game in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not, I think our thing is similar to you. Like, we're interested in seeing how, what are the habits, what are the behaviors, how do guys interact with each other?
Mm-hmm.
What makes a skilled player versus a non-skilled player, and how do you make more skilled players? So those are the things that we like to dissect. And then it's cool, like we were talking before. You're a Philly fan now, though.
No, I mean, I cover out of Philly. I'm not
cover Philly. Okay.
Yeah, I've been part of the Philly media for about 15 years. I'm in the Professional Hockey Writers Association, so no, I'm not a fan. But I do cover out of there, and I'm certainly a fan of some of the guys. As an example, maybe like a couple of weeks ago, we with the help of somebody else, I fixed Sean Couturier's draft podium video that I had because the sound was just a little off and you couldn't understand them. And so, and if you look online, like, you couldn't find much of that at all. And I did it on like a one-touch video camera at the time. So somebody helped me fix it a little bit and we put subtitles there. And because, Sean's such a great player, it's like I wanted to sort of save that and made sure that, hey, if nothing else, we've got this, because it's hard to find it. Yeah, I bet you even the Flyers have to search hard to find it. So I you do get attached to guys like that you have helped or interviewed, or like even a good story is with Sam Moran. So he first came into one of the rookie camps, and we were standing by his locker, and you see he's big 6'6", 6'7" guy, but he had a short stick. He had a very short stick, and
really?
And one of the writers said something to him about. We both were noticing at the same time. He goes, "Sam, you realize your stick is short?" He goes, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Listen, you could petition the league. You can get a longer stick. You're a bigger guy." And he goes, "I can." And I'm like, he goes, "I'm going to talk to my agent about that." Like, he didn't even know, those kinds of things. I love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I just want to finish your story about, like Michael has said about I think analytics for me, it's another tools and the toolbox for the coaches and for everybody to use at some degrees, and not all the way, but I think that help the seed number, everything like that. Like, I give you an example right now, the best line in NHL is the third line for Washington Capitals, 5 versus 5. The chance to score versus the chance they don't give to other teams. It's pretty, that's what analytics, when you study a lot deep, you can see a couple of things where usually you don't see during the game, only by your eyes. So I think that's a good tool for the coaches. But, we bring you honestly for the talking a little bit more about the game outside, everything like that. I want to know more about you. What kind of experience, or the great one, the positive one, the negative one? I'm pretty sure the weather is one factor, but maybe 2 or 3 experience where this was amazing experience with your players, so the fact you surround yourself with a great people, love the game. honestly.
Yeah. So I did write the only book on the Winter Classic. It's still out there. So people can go to Amazon.com, or they could even just go to @Sportsology on Twitter and DM me if they want a signed copy. But so that book only goes up to the first time they were supposed to have the game at the Big House, but then there was the lockout, so it didn't happen, and then it eventually happened. We haven't updated it yet. It almost got updated this year. But so I go back to 08, right? The first one. So what was interesting about that was there wasn't a lot of fanfare. There were fans, obviously, it's Buffalo, you're going to get fans. And, Crosby's in it, so you're going to get fans. But there wasn't a lot of fanfare from other media, from sources. And so it was interesting because we got there, and I want to say there was maybe 2 merchandise stands, maybe. And I want to say maybe at one of them you had like 10 items, maybe. I was thrilled because I was working with the NHL a little bit at times. I had written for .com, and so I got to write in that first Winter Classic book that they give out, the guide. So that was cool. And so I made sure I bought one of those. And so we were walking, and we got credentialed, and we're walking on the field, and all of a sudden they just started testing the pyrotechnics. And so we were watching all of that from the field. Now you can't even be in the building when they test the pyrotechnics. But at that point, it was just random, right? So we did that. And I remember, like, now the media meal even gets very, I want to say fancy at times, really good. Back then, it was very basic. It was wings, which again in Buffalo is fine, and an energy drink. There was like a massive pile of wings, and there was some energy drink there, and that was it, right? So, the game starts. We're all excited, and of course, I think because of the advent when most people were starting to get HD television, and the fact that you could see more, and then it snowed, that really cemented that game. Now, I had been to the Heritage Classic. I actually went to the Heritage Classic and covered it, and that was a great game too. But this one was different because the viewing audience was able to connect more with it because it was more worldwide than the Heritage Classic was, right? And so, you had that game, you have it come down to Crosby. What's interesting is now that stadium, which I always just call Rich Stadium because I'm a Jets fan and I hate the Buffalo Bills, and I have no love for the Bills. And so I think it was Ralph Wilson Stadium at the time, right? And there was a long walk to get to that locker room. And so I had to plan out, like, when am I going to do this? Because I need to get post-game stuff. And so we left just before the shootout. So I watched the shootout from the tunnel. And it was an interesting way to do it, too, because, after the winter, Crosby comes off the ice. And I was with the Buffalo Scratches. And so that was kind of interesting. They're there dressed up. I'm standing behind them, and I'm watching. And some kid asked Crosby for his autograph right when he comes off the ice. Crosby signs it. The kid's happy. He goes in the locker room. It was like a Coke commercial without the media, but it was just, it was unbelievable. And so everybody felt really good about that game. And I think the league was just testing it because they knew they needed something to make money, because the league needed some money in those days. They needed an infusion. It had been 5 years, right, since the Heritage Classic. You wondered why they sat on it so long. And then they realized this is good, but now I think we can make it bigger and better. And that's what they kept doing. And so that start, though, if that game would have been like a horrible game, or it would have been a rain out.
Yeah, that's a thing.
You might not have seen another Winter Classic. Honestly,
you control those conditions. It's nuts.
Absolutely agree with you.
Well, it's exciting that you're a part of all that and that you're able to kind of be the historian on all of these events.
Yeah.
So what's going on this year in Philadelphia? You cover the Flyers. How's our, I've worked with Everett for quite a while. It's 7 or 8 years now, but
so you're a Carter Hart guy.
We know Carter since he was like 14. So how's our boy Carter Hart doing? And you got another one of our players, I think, in the AHL, Wyatt Wiley.
Yeah, Wyatt Wiley is actually progressing really well. I actually wrote about him after the last rookie camp. Excuse me. And I think he can be an NHLer. I think he's starting to make that jump. He just needed to put on a little muscle, and he needs to get reps in the AHL, which he's going to get. So I actually have a lot of hope for Wiley. Hart's an interesting one because I even got to cover his World Junior in Buffalo, which was great. He still has a little trouble on the road. You can't deny it. I know people don't like to talk about it as much. It's not as it's not as bad as it was a year ago, where Elliott was literally playing the road game, or 2 years ago, where Elliott was pretty much playing all the road games. If you notice, that was the way they did it. And last year didn't really count to me because he was in a bubble and he showed up to the same rink every day. So even though he was in Edmonton, he was still at the same rink as everybody else. So I felt like there's still a different dynamic. This year, he's a little better on the road. He's still not as comfortable on the road as he is at home. And I still think that's the young goalie in him. And the only other thing that's not great in his game, otherwise everything's terrific, and he had a really good game last night, he still is not good with the stick handle and the puck. Like there are times where he is uncomfortable doing it and not confident, and sometimes he'll leave the puck, by the trapezoid, and the other team will reach over and get it because he just didn't know what to do with it quick enough. It's almost like they should just tell him to leave it alone completely.
But sometimes he just needs to work on it. So is he working with the Flyers? I assume he's working with the Flyers goalie coaches. He probably doesn't work with Shane Clifford anymore, right?
No, he works with he used to be the Kings coach. I can't. It'll come to me, but yes, he works with the Flyers goalie coaches. And look, like last night, maybe Buchnevich didn't give his best move, but he's got great hands.
Oh yeah,
and to stop him on a penalty shot the way he did, that was a hell of a save. He made a couple really good ones. That was a game where the Rangers didn't test him as much as he normally would, but Hart has been making some really great saves this year. His positioning's good. His read and react is good. He does think ahead of the play.
Right. And his rebound control is pretty damn good.
But look, he is still, people forget, like when he starts in the outdoor game, he will still be the youngest goalie to ever start in an outdoor game. And, you don't think about that because he's been in the league for a while already. But
yeah,
I think fans have a hard time remembering that, hey, we know he's our goalie right now, but he's still the goalie of the future too. And it's kind of like the clock started early. That's all.
Yeah, think about it. He's 22.
Yeah.
Like he's a 98 birth year.
I know.
How much do people talk about Ron Hextall? Because to me, his fingerprints are all over this team, including Carter.
We do talk about him a lot. And actually, him and Chris Pryor still get a lot of credit, and they should. And they should. Because if you think about it, 2 of those drafts were all-timers for any team that Hextall pulled off. And if you start looking at the lineup, even like yesterday's lineup was a good example where you had guys like Shushko playing. He had his NHL debut. All of a sudden, you look at that lineup, and it's like, boy, these are like 5-6 guys already, maybe 7 including the goalie, which, again, they traded up for Hart. For some reason, he inexplicably left out there. I ranked him much higher than where he went in the draft. I still don't get it. I'll never get it to this day. But the odd thing is, even though Hextall, got released, fired, left, however you want to say it.
By the guy who's Matthew cleaned up.
Yeah, he still solved the age-old problem in this town where they couldn't have a homegrown goalie. He solved that problem.
It's crazy. Like, it blows my mind because, like, he inherited a mess. Like, the contract situation was a disaster.
It was bad to the point where every day they'd have to send a player down, bring a player up just because of the cap space. They would run out of cap space. It was unbelievable his first year, what they had to go through with that.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
But he also added layers of player development that were massive. So his first rookie camp, I'm one of those idiots that literally goes to the first day and I'm there early. Like, I love rookie camp, right? I want to see these guys. It's after the draft. It's during the summer. Like, I don't need to be at the beach. I want to be at rookie camp. I go. And so they had all the testing equipment out there, out in the front in Voorhees, right? And in the, basically not in the hallway, but off to the side. So I got there and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll check it out. And I saw Sam Moran doing the high jump where, you hit the metal piece and it goes and they check it out, right? And so when he did that, he was close to the top because, he's a physical freak.
He's like 6'8", he's a monster.
And I was like, hey, how high was that? And the guy looked at me and goes, I'm not telling you. Like it's a secret. And I'm like, uh-oh. Then I realized, but I took a picture of it. I still have the picture. it's a cell phone shot of him jumping, and it's pretty amazing, even like a lousy cell phone shot. And so I was there for that day. The next day, everything was hidden. All of a sudden, all that stuff was hidden from the media because of one guy that came out. But Hextall added a lot of that testing, and every year it got better. Where before that, the Flyers were not doing much with that. They were using the electronic eye. They're seeing how fast they are. They were doing the sleep thing. They were doing all that stuff started to come into play in the Hextall era. And it's easy to just look at the players and say, hey, look, the players they drafted. But people don't always know about the other stuff.
Well, I think even we forget too, he was part of the LA group.
Right.
That won the cup, and he was passed over, and he was pretty, he was kind of quietly outspoken about that, I think.
Well, and
like,
he wasn't the GM of the Monarchs
when
they won the Calder Cup. Like, he was the GM.
Right. So I think Pittsburgh's getting a really good person, and
it's
I
a
think
good pickup for them. It really.
Every time I watch them, I'm like, how did you get this guy? How did you get Farabee where you got him? How did you get Morgan Frost?
Yeah, Frost they traded up for you.
Konechny, come on. Konechny was a first overall pick in the OHL, and you get him at 20th.
Okay, so Frost, I can tell you, I just wrote a piece for Elite Prospects, and I interviewed Andy, his dad, right? He was the longtime voice of the Leafs, so, he knows hockey too. And I got really good perspective from all that, but there's no question that teams just thought Frost couldn't play defense and he was skinny, and they worried about, is he just an offense-only player, and how good is that offense? Even though shortly after the Flyers drafted him, I think it was a year later, he's up for the OHL lead in points, right? He's challenging for that. He's still been a work in progress in the sense that he gets better every time I see him. And it's a shame he's hurt right now, because in the few games that he did play, when he got recalled up this year, he looked really good. Yeah, and so it was a shame that it's sort of gotten derailed. But Andy had told me a story about, he was sitting with Morgan, and they were kind of wondering where he was going to go. And Andy didn't want to, he said he didn't want to, make a big deal out of it. But he said when they made the announcement that Philly was trading up, he actually nudged Morgan and said, I think this is you. Like, I think he got a feeling like, as a dad, this was it. And that was cool. Like, that's cool that,
that's cool when that happens. I mean, his dad's a legend in Toronto, obviously, as the announcer. And
so I was thrilled. Like, he told me that. I was like, wow, that's a good story. I know Morgan really well because, I've covered him. At the Combine, 2 of us interviewed Morgan, maybe one other guy. Like, that's how little press he was getting as a player.
Wow.
And that's what happens in the draft sometimes.
Absolutely.
Konechny, I don't get. Like, Konechny was good all along. I don't get it. He was a big star for the 57s. I mean, come on. I don't get that one.
He's 5'9", 5'10". That's the problem. And
right, but they didn't realize the feistiness of him makes up for that.
And I'm not sure if he has the separations, or that people thought he had the separations. He does. He's a very skilled, talented player. So it's exciting. I mean, I give a lot of credit to him, because they've got so many great prospects.
Sorry, I'm getting a message. I can't reach the phone to stop it, but
we're excited about what's going on in Philly. We love Provorov. We love
Provorov is a good story. Actually, if people want to read about Provorov before he was even drafted, just go to my website, Sportsology, and type in Hackensack, New Jersey. When the USHL decided to do a tournament for the first time, like in this part of the world, they went to Hackensack. And so that was kind of interesting. And I covered him. I don't know if it was Cedar Rapids. I don't know who he's playing for. He played for a short time.
He played for Brandon.
No. In the USHL. He played for Brandon in WHL. But this
Cedar Rapids,
Cedar Rapids, I think it was, right. And so I got to see him in that, and I wrote about it, and I said, this guy is the best guy in the ice. And him and Friedman, I actually wrote about Friedman in that tournament too, because I thought Friedman looked really good.
Oh, yeah, right. Mark.
Interesting how they became teammates. But even his first year in Brandon, he wasn't getting talked about Provorov until about mid-season, and then all of a sudden he's scoring a ton of points, and then they started talking about him. But he was under the radar too.
I mean, I think we all recognize when he came in, it's like, wow, this is like a special player. You're like, okay, you play Brandon, watch this guy. He's a problem.
Well, his parents or at least his mom is a doctor, right?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so there's a thing about that. So, like, his first rookie camp, he made sure he had, one of the smart watches. And when he was on the ice, he was checking things. And so I asked him about that when he got off the ice. I said, look, what are you actually measuring out there? Because I see you're constantly looking at your watch. So clearly you're testing yourself. He goes, oh, no, I was just checking the time. And, I knew he was, that was baloney. But if you watch him, he is the best conditioned guy on the Flyers and one of the best conditioned guys in the league. And I think he had gotten some of that info from his parents. I think he picked up some of it along the way. And if you remember during the pandemic, he was at his billet family's house and skating because they owned a private rink.
Oh, no way. I didn't know
in
that.
Pennsylvania. So he was skating the whole time during the pandemic where most players were not.
That's really interesting.
So, yeah, he's a piece of work.
He's a special player.
He is.
Well, now there's another Brandon Wheat King that you have there in Philadelphia, and we know we've had a rough run with Nolan Patrick, but how is Nolan faring since coming back?
Actually, really good. I had to temper expectations, though, because I felt like, look, you don't know what's going to happen. I know people who suffer from migraines. You didn't know what was going to happen with contact. But, I'm going to say now, his situation is reminding me of Crosby, where they let him be away from the rink for so long that it definitely negated a lot of the symptoms, right? And maybe even the recurrence, because now he's playing as feisty as he ever did. He's completely engaged. His speed is great. I thought he made some terrific plays last night, although I didn't like that penalty that he had late in the game. Fans are like, well, if he doesn't make that penalty, it's a goal. It's like, no, you have Carter Hart in goal. He probably can make that save.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it didn't hurt him. But for the most part, Nolan's done really well. Now, he's not where he should be offensively, but that's to be expected because of what has happened with him. So I think like maybe next year his offense will come back. I rated him ahead of Nico Hischier for the simple fact that I said, hey, I get Hischier is a good player, but I do think that 53 points that he gets is his limit.
Yeah.
I actually think Patrick can go above that if he ever can be fully healthy and playing the way he normally can play, because he is a higher skill player than Hischier, and he's starting to show that now. And I hope that he doesn't get derailed again.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing we're all hoping for him. I know his dad had a lot of injury problems when he was in the NHL, and we saw even in the WHL he had injury problems. So we're all hopeful that he can get on track.
Yeah, look, I watched his dad play for the Rangers. Yeah,
Steven was like you thought Steven would be. I mean, his uncle was a phenomenal.
No, his uncle was great, but yeah, but his dad was a good player too.
He was, yeah, but just the injuries were bad for him too. So you always worry about that a little bit.
I think the key for Nolan is more about the time on play or the TOI, because he still not have that kind of quality time versus a rookie or a player pick the top 3 in the NHL should have. So he's played behind those big gun and Flyers. So I think for me, it's more about to be patient and don't thinking about which which rank he was picked in the draft. And that's not fair to him because the injury he got at the end of the day. So I think if you're patient about that, and the good news for the Flyers, they still have a great player in front of him right now. So they are not losing anything. Talking about Extall, I think for one thing, maybe for me, maybe Russ, more. What I love from him is the quality to pick players the second, third, and fourth round, and not the first one. More deeper in the draft. I really where Extall make a difference for the way he pick as a GM.
Yeah, no question. I mean, they've made a lot of great late round picks, and it's hard. I mean, Shane Malloy puts out all these percentages, and once you get even into the second round, you're in the 30s, and when you get beyond that, it's even less than that. I see the Habs jerseys, and probably the first guy I think of is Louis LeBlanc, poor guy, and that just but that just shows you how you can swing and miss at a draft. And actually, you talk about patience, and actually the Canadians had the least amount of patience with their young players, even now, even though they're a good team now, but they rush guys. And so I'm a guy and I don't hide it. Like, it doesn't matter what market I'm in. If I feel like a player is being rushed, I tell you, even if they have a good year, they're being rushed. And I did feel they rushed Kotkaniemi, but I do think you're seeing what he is capable of now. Like, I think you're finally seeing it. But it's hard. It's hard to be an 18-year-old and playing in the NHL. It's hard for a 19-year-old. Even a 20-year-old is hard in the NHL. A lot of times you see 21, 22, and then for defensemen, it could go up to 25. That's when you really start to see some gains. But yeah, the Flyers have done well with their late round picks. Tanner Lisinski right now is with Lehigh, and he started Ohio State. That's a guy who I actually think can make a difference in a year or two.
And I think because of the situation with the CHL and the OHL, you see a lot of guys that are in the AHL that probably normally wouldn't be. A couple of them actually on Lehigh Valley is, one is Zaid Wisdom. And how's Zaid Wisdom doing?
Actually, so Wisdom, I wrote about him too because he is a good story. I didn't write about the typical story that you hear about Zaid Wisdom. I really just wrote about him as a player and how he looked to me. And you know what? He's good, man. He definitely could be a power forward. I do think he has to work on his skating. I do think his battle on the boards, though, is really good. Like, even against players that were older than him when they were playing he played in two exhibition, one definitely, maybe two exhibition games. And, he came away with the puck a few times and he made a couple of good passes. So there's definitely something there. Obviously, the personality is great. And so, I do think there's a good fit with Zaid Wisdom. So yeah, you're right. Normally he wouldn't be there, but he's getting good experience. And Scott Gordon is a terrific coach. He really is.
That's a good point because you have a legitimate coach on that team who
goes very under the radar again with this organization. But he's amazing.
He's an excellent coach.
He coached for so long. He was when I was working in East Coast Hockey League at the beginning of 2000. He was there. He started so low, and then he grew all the way. Remember, he was coach for the Islanders, I believe. He was a couple of years over there.
Yeah,
I think he's really a great teacher. He communicates very well with the players also. So I think sometimes some coaches are not born, but they are doing better with the youngest players to teaching the game to get them to get better development compared to other coaches. They're really more about the head coach and run the team and everything like that. So I think that's great talking about Scott Gordon. But I want to mention, I have a question for you because you really work with the prospect. But with the situation with the COVID-19, the CHL not play, and those players does not play, the youngest 17, 18. What is your suggestion about the draft for the upcoming season or this summer? Do you think it should be pushed back 6 more months or maybe wait 1 more year? What do you think about this?
No, I still think they should have a draft when you're supposed to have it. I did hear the idea recently that maybe they only have a first round, but I don't see why you would only have a first round. I think you could take something out of the NBA if you want to do like the first 2 rounds. I think everybody's seen enough because you remember some of these players you have seen from the year before. It's not the same, and there is going to be the U18s now. The U18s is going to be that's going to be heavily scouted, and it will count heavily in this draft, even more than normal. So I think because you're having the U18s, you should have a draft. My initial idea was a couple of weeks ago was to say, hey, you know what? Maybe have 2 rounds as an 18-year-old draft. The rest of it be 19 and older, and then be 19 and older from here on forward. Because, again, I don't think the 18-year-old draft is good anymore for this league. I do think it's really hard. Really? Yeah, well, think about it. How many –
old.
No, but I think the longer you can look at players, the better I think you can evaluate them. Just think about how many first and second rounders get rushed into the NHL because they're a first or second overall pick, get rushed into the NHL because of that pressure of, hey, we just picked you first overall, so you're now in the NHL, even if we're not 100% on you being ready yet. How often does that happen? I think it happens too often.
It does, but I think that goes down to the quality and the system of the organization. I think that now more than ever, we have more data and more eyes on players earlier. I mean, our league, we draft players at 14. The OHL and the Q are 15. And then you see these players that go NCAA. And frankly, like, that's an old league. Like, we can tell at 13, 14, 15, you kind of know who's who. Now, you see players emerge. Like, you see a Wayne Simmons come out of nowhere.
Yes.
And there's always those stories. So I think that there's logic to me, 18 is the right age. We see there's guys very, very capable. The skill level is insane now. I don't know what you see, but
I mean, I see a lot of it.
So much. And we can thank hockey USA Hockey. We can thank Hockey Canada. We can thank, Sweden and Russia for the programs, because I think they've all recognized that skills where it's at, and the NHL's done a great job. But I think it goes down to the individual team. I think delaying the maturity of these players, like we see guys stepping at 18, 19 that you would never think.
So, but I'm going to give a good example. So last year for a couple of outlets, I wrote about Dylan Holloway, right? And Dylan Holloway is a perfect example of like just an amazing player in the AHL, put up big numbers, right? He goes to Wisconsin, a true freshman, which is hard to do because like you said, it's an older league, and the team wasn't great, and so people were sort of bashing him because he didn't put up a lot of points. But I pointed out to people that hey, he's winning faceoffs against much older, stronger kids.
He's a great player.
He was playing good defensively. He was doing a lot of those right things, but he still needed to be stronger. So this year, you saw the difference. You saw the difference in the World Juniors. You see the difference. And you see the same thing with Caulfield, actually. Same thing, right? I mean, you're seeing the Caulfield. But if these guys were drafted a year later, you'd be seeing that before you draft them rather than seeing it after you've kind of let them in the wild.
I think that takes the science and the art of scouting out of it. So.
I mean, I'm not going to argue because I don't mind it.
So this, you bring a player that I know well.
If they want to shorten it, go at least 2 rounds. Don't do 1 round.
Yeah, I agree with that because I think it's very difficult for us as scouts to evaluate the depth.
Yes.
It takes away what we've developed over the last 10 years, which is this ability to find guys later and to understand players. But honestly, it's tough we look at the draft age. So you look at the WHL.
Yeah.
You bring up Dylan Holloway. We drafted Dylan Holloway, I think, in the 6th round for Everett. And we drafted at 14. And what's funny is because we were trying to get him to come play with us and sign, and the story from our GM is, well, you just drafted him in the 6th round. How much can you like him? I'm like, it's not, we're looking at a prospect. We don't worry about whether they're first, second.
Right. It's where you thought he should be on your board. It had nothing to do with liking him.
We were excited for him.
Yeah. Although you haven't mentioned Dustin Wolfe, which I'm surprised because I really like him too.
Well, Dusty's a California kid. So what have you seen Dustin play much?
A little bit. And I've liked what I've seen. And I actually saw him not too long ago, and he's improving. He's improving greatly, I think.
Oh, man. People are they're sleeping on him.
He's under the radar. He really is.
There's so much bias against him. And I can tell you, we were at that draft, both Frenchie and I was sitting with my team, but I was sitting with the Wolves, and I had to get up and leave. If Mike is watching this or his mom's watching this, Michelle, I'm like, I had to get up because they get pretty intense about it. And I was like, God, he's got to get picked. This is stupid. So Dustin, who's an American-born goalie playing the WHL, he was Carter's backup for a year.
Yep.
At 16, and his numbers are actually better than Carter's.
I know.
He has not missed a beat with us.
No, he's good. He's really, really good. But and
he was fourth. It was the 4th last pick for Cal, in the entire draft in Calgary.
I was watching intently because I couldn't believe it was going that long, and Hart had talked him up. We were freaking out. Carter had talked him up pretty good in the market here, for obvious reasons, not just because he's my backup, he's really good. No, he really did talk about how good he was. But here's the thing, though. So last year's draft, and I feel like if this year's draft goes let's say it goes the full 7 this year. What happened last year, I think, is going to happen this year, and that is a lot of Euros are going to start going from 3rd round on, and also overagers. And I think they're going to do the same thing this year. I think that's how the teams are going to adjust if there's no changes made. Because if you think about it, how many Euros were taken last year? There was a run of them.
And overagers in the first round.
And overagers, yeah.
And I think that's going to backfire. I mean,
but it's just you can get them in the AHL quicker, so it does fuel your system quicker. It doesn't mean it'll be up to the NHL though.
I think that first round this year was very, very deep, but because there were so many overagers, including Lafreniere, which we have not talked about, but I think that you're already seeing the guy that went 3rd is better than the 1st and the 2nd.
Well, I mean, it's early.
It is, but still is way ahead of both those guys.
My question to you is because I don't follow too much, but do you expect or do you think a player like the German players, so those guys play over there because they play against older player or stronger players versus the kids playing CHL, make a difference at short term when they are ready to jump in the NHL?
So I made sure I called Stützle during the pandemic, right, when his league stopped and way before the draft, because I wanted to know more about him. And there is no question that the guidance that they get from players, Marcel Goetsch was like his guy. That was his go-to guy there. So he, a grizzled NHL vet. He's playing over there. He's teaching him how to be a pro on and off the ice. He's telling them about training methods. And Stützle had a lot of things that a lot of younger guys, and this is where I think he's ahead of Lafreniere. I don't know if it's in talent, but I think he had a chance to build up his body because he had access to a rink and a trainer even during the pandemic in Germany, where obviously in Canada, there was no way you had that access because when things shut down for pretty good for a little while. Yeah. So I think that gave him an edge. And I think Stützle now comes in with a more developed body. Obviously a great player, great vision, great skating. Not great. He never really had to face back pressure in Germany, so I kind of wonder how his two-way game and how he's going to be under duress. He has these games where he has 3 points, and then there's these other games where he's not doing anything. So I do think there's going to be a little bit of that for him to learn, because I think that's the difference of like the DEL and the NHL, which is a big difference, right? Yeah. So. But I don't think he's better than Lafreniere. And so I watched him last night, right? This was the first time I got to see him live since the Top Prospects game. I was at the Top Prospects game last year. Last time I was allowed in Canada. Now I'm like an American who can't go to Canada, right? But so he is a little tentative. But you have to remember, this ride that he's had so far with David Quinn, most of the time he does not get to play with high caliber players.
Third line with like grinders.
He was out there, and this is no disrespect to Di Giuseppe, but he was out there with Rooney and Di Giuseppe, and it's like there is nothing that is going to help him by playing with these guys, speed-wise, finesse-wise. There's no match there, right? Now, 2 games before that, when they did Ryan Strome with Kakko and him, that was good, and I wish they would have stuck with that.
Yeah.
They don't. They give Lafreniere 1 or 2 shifts a game with Panarin. That's it. So he, basically Panarin will just jump in on the line there, and that's it. But last night I tweeted about this because Quinn made a huge error, and this is the same kind of error that Barry Melrose did with Stamkos. I went crazy. Melrose at the time when he was coaching Tampa had this 40-year-old line, and he loved it. And it was Recchi, and that was his thing. He kept talking about that post game, and I said, hold on. You drafted Steve Stamkos. You only played him 9 minutes, and you didn't put him on the power play. And he gave me some kind of mumbo jumbo. And on my website, and I rarely would write this, I'm like, Barry Melrose should be fired immediately. And I pointed out, and I did this article. He actually was fired the next day. Oh, no. I'm about to update the article. I don't think it's going to happen like that with David Quinn. But here's what Quinn did last night. So I think you still need to be at games, because when you're watching a broadcast, Lafreniere was only by the net 2-3 times the whole game, right? So if you're a fan, you're like, he didn't show me anything. But he was making good plays along the walls. He actually started a break that got a penalty. He made a couple defensive plays at center ice. He was skating well. He was actually, as that game went on, he was getting better. And you don't really see that on a TV broadcast, right?
Yeah.
So in overtime, which, by the way, he has the only overtime game winner on the team this year. He is the only one. Now, I think that's his only goal, too, but whatever. So
he should be way ahead of that. I think you're hitting it on the head. He's not getting.
Well, here's what he did. So this is the crux. So in overtime, the period's almost over. You're in the offensive zone. Lafreniere's out on the ice, and at the last second, they pull him off the ice. One of the coach says something to him, and then he sort of slumps his shoulders a little bit, and they go with the last shift. Nobody scores in overtime. It goes to the shootout, right? And, of course, they're not going to use Lafreniere in a shootout, even though they should.
Right.
But they didn't. And they won the game. Good for them. But the problem was that was the perfect opportunity to put him in there with a chance to win the game in an offensive zone start with the kind of skill he has. Why did you take that away from him?
It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. It's not like they're winning big games.
So I tweeted about it. I wasn't going to hide it.
You shouldn't, because I think that's part of I have no question about his ability.
No, I don't either.
I think that he should be way ahead, and it's not his fault. So I think he's the exception to the overage thing. I do believe Stützle is overall going to be a better player than him or Byfield.
I think Stützle will be better than Byfield, and I did have it.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
But I do think Byfield, obviously is going to serve a great role too, because if you have a big, strong center like that, I don't know if Stützle will be as rugged of a center if they're going to make him a center. So, that is a big edge too for Byfield.
I think that in tight, Stützle is ahead of both of those guys.
Sure.
And that's
right now today
you don't get. Like, you can put two guys on him and he's going to come out with the puck. And I think that's why a lot of teams actually had him first or second.
Yeah, but you would have told me last year, hey, everybody's ahead of Jack Hughes. Now, how would you tell me it is this year?
Well, I know a little bit.
Hughes is almost a point a game, so I'm not a great team.
Hughes is just a very small guy, and he put on 14 pounds in the offseason. I think that really helped.
It did.
Just otherworld talent, like his. I still don't know. I believe he's more Patrick Kane than Connor McDavid.
Oh, sure, I totally agree with you on that.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
So he's going to be a phenomenal player. So that doesn't worry me. I think that's a good example where you say you rush a player, but where are you going to put him? U.S. development program?
I know. I thought
put him in. He's got to play, right? So
I thought they were going to maybe send Hughes overseas like they did Austin Matthews, and they didn't do it. So that's what I thought they might do.
So again, this is another player that Everett drafted, which is Austin Matthews, and we kind of thought that Pat was gonna, he was gonna come in April, and I was like, I don't think he's coming. And Pat's very honest,
yeah.
But it's like he's a man, he was an overager, right?
So I have you want a quick Matthews story?
He went to Switzerland for the right.
Yeah, so
move. We wanted him, but
so when they opened up the Islanders practice rink on the island in Eisenhower Park, they had a tournament there, and it was a U.S. tournament. I'm like, I gotta go. It's my old stomping grounds. I'm gonna go. And when I was going there, I'm there to cover guys like Fitzgerald and guys like that, right? So there's a game, and I'm watching the game, and there's this big kid barreling down and he was coming off the wing, and he got a great scoring chance, and it didn't go in. And I'm like, who the hell's this guy? And I look, and it's like Matthews. Okay, I'm gonna check. I'm going to put a little star there because I don't know him. And, you find out later he had a broken leg the year before. So I don't know who this guy is, right? I admit it. 3 times in that game, he had breakaways. Was faster than anybody on the ice. I started writing about Austin Matthews right then and there. And that was a year before he was drafted, because I was like, wow, this guy is unbelievable. And he just couldn't convert that game. It happens, right? And so, you see Austin Matthews now, and I can't say I'm surprised, but if I wasn't at that tournament, I would be surprised.
I think you're hitting on the head about how we get to see these guys early, because we're following them. And so when you see a guy like that and you follow them, you're like, yeah, this guy's going to be something. I wonder if anybody else notices.
Right. And look, and me here, I've got to have a package. If I'm watching, any other league, if I'm watching any CHL games, I've got to have some sort of package. I got to see games. So I do try and get out. Last year, I got to 5 or 6 games. We were in Windsor. We were in, in a bunch of different places because we wanted to see, a lot of the draft eligibles. I may still try it again this year if the border opens. If not, I'll just go to the U18s, and that's where. And I've been watching online anyhow, and that's where it'll have to be. But Matthews is a great example that of what you're trying to talk about.
Well, I think it's exciting to see players like him, especially because of how where he came from, like in Arizona. And he had a very off-the-radar skating coach who I think has now shown that, hey, this is a modern, McDavid's got a similar short stride. And normally you'd write guys like that off, but now you see Jack Hughes has got the same little short stride with power.
I'll tell you who had that too was Scott Lawton. It was really bad, and it's improved. Right? It's improved. He's a pretty good player.
He's a good player. He's a character.
He is a character. They still drafted him too high, but he is a really good player.
Maybe.
I just want to bring, because you talk about, I maybe watch 95% of the game, but be honest with you, Russ, and I want to bring to you, first of all, Dan Cohen is a great coach, head coach. He's not like a bad guy who tried to destroy a kids, everything like that.
No.
What you bring yesterday is a good point because, he was the third player who played the last minute on the game yesterday with 12 minutes just in front of Lemieux. Of course, you have 10 power plays during the game, 5 on both teams, everything like that. But I was paying attention during the OT. I said, when he's going to use him, when he's going to put him. And honestly, he was barely not there. He was always back. Now, Panarin back in the game now. Change a little bit the lineup every time that. But I think I don't know if he tried to hide him. I don't know if he tried to not destroy his confidence. We don't know everything behind the door.
He's not playing to his strengths. That's my problem.
That's the key behind that part over there. You bring another great point. When he played with Capo and Strom this week, you can see a little bit more freedom of his talent over there. When he played with he played the same kind of minute as Blackwell. Blackwell have a couple of great games right now, but he's not the type of player I believe he should play with. You think if you give him a stretch of 5 to 10 games, let him play with Strom, let him play with Panarin, let him play with that.
Like my argument is, are you trying to make Rooney and Blackwell better players, or do you want to make Lafreniere a better player who's your franchise player?
Listen, I don't think you have to make Lafreniere anything. I think you just have to let him play.
Well, I mean, again,
he's on another planet. This is like
Rooney out.
Back.
Right. Rooney was out in a 3-on-3 situation, and I was like, are you kidding me? Why is he playing?
Yeah. That's the point behind that part.
Yeah, I watched the game. Coach who likes that style of player and trusts that, and that's a problem.
Lafreniere is on another planet, and I don't understand the use of him. It doesn't make
I'm telling you, fans don't know that, and fans are already starting to say, look, he's got like 2 points. What the hell's wrong with him?
Let him play.
I will give you
20 minutes, he'll show you.
But the best example we can find right now at that moment is Jack Hughes.
Yes.
Because look, Jack Hughes, what he did last year versus this year, no strong enough. He was really behind everybody. If you look at him right now, he's looking better, look more like mature, physicality, muscle mass, everything like that.
Yes.
And I think that's the problem right now, maybe for Lafreniere. But overall,
I would not agree with that, Pierre. I'll tell you why. Because he's a very well conditioned player, and he's big.
I mean, look, he got
a year older last
year. I mean, he does hit people. There's no question.
Yeah, man. He's not.
And he does hit. He was checking last night. It's not like he's a wallflower when the puck's on the boards. He's not.
He is not, and he is a strong.
I do think he could be a little stronger. I think it's not so much the bulk; it's the man strength. I don't think it's quite there yet.
He is ahead of anyone in that draft class, I think, physically.
No, not ahead of Byfield. I don't think.
Oh yeah, Byfield is not as strong as you think. Byfield is tall, and if you go back and watch Byfield struggles in tight, and he falls a lot.
I did see him struggle. We followed him
watching the World Junior with me. I'm like, why is he on his ass again?
I did see that, and I did follow him for 2 games last year where he didn't score at all. So I was like,
he's young.
Yeah,
that was the biggest problem with Kotkaniemi from Montreal. He was not strong enough to stay on the battle every time. That you can see
to be a 1C, right? Like that's crazy.
That's my point for Lafreniere. I'm not talking about the physicality to hit someone in the corner. See, how can you, when you battle 50-50 on the corner, pick up the puck, everything like that? That's what I feel like now he needs to catch up everything. But at the end of the day, he's an excellent, great hockey player. He will become one of the great in the game. He just gave it time.
I do think he's afraid to make a mistake, guys. And I can see that when he's on the ice. And I think that's when the coach does need to talk to the guy and explain things to him. But I don't think Quinn does that.
And I think you do well. I think it's a great point here. Plus the pressure he's getting day after day because he cannot score. He cannot get a point. Right. He cannot. That's get bigger and bigger. And that's why now, you feel like every time I have the puck, he's scared. He does not want it. So his confidence and belief. And that's what you need to get that part of the relationship. We don't know between him and Quinn at that moment. So it's another great point over there. But
I want to bring up another guy, which is what is going on with Mika Zibanejad?
All right. So what's going on with him is he has definitely lost a little confidence. I noticed a couple of games ago, he's passing way more than he used to because he's got one of the great shots in the league and he's not using it right now. Yesterday, he was getting a little more engaged and starting to shoot a little more. But what I noticed about him and Panarin, because Panarin is one of the guys in the league that can have 2.5 bad periods and still dominate a game. And he did that. But what I was noticing for both of them was when they were getting the puck and they had a chance to just shoot the puck, right? They both weren't shooting their best shots. Matter of fact, Zibanejad hit a rut in the ice, breaks his stick. Panarin actually didn't even get off a clean shot on one of them. And I was like, that is mental. And to me, it's like no players struggle. Like, it's funny, right? nobody has pressed more breathing down their neck than Toronto or Montreal. But even though the New York market isn't voracious for hockey as far as coverage, the pressure of New York is still great for players. And sometimes you see it. And I think Zibanejad has gotten caught up in that a little bit because I think everything was a little too easy for him. Maybe. Things were going great for him. Now, on the plus side, he was winning faceoffs in the defensive zone like it was going out of style. And that's something where that's a big deal for the Rangers because they're weak down the middle. So that was at least a plus.
This guy had 40 goals in like 60-some-odd games last year.
I know.
So
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I watched him again yesterday. He tried to feed too much Panarin, and that's hurt his style right now.
Yes.
You can see on 4 versus 3, I don't know if you watched the OT, he was trying to feed Panarin all the time on the left side all the time. At some point, he switched. Panarin because he was at the top of the umbrella. Now they switched back Panarin the top over there. They tried too much to bring on Panarin. And what happening right now, everybody know with Panarin was going to shoot all the time. And I think they need to shift a little bit the passing and then
Panarin did a good job. He actually did a crossover to try and mix that up because he knew that.
Yes, exactly. I saw that game, that OT over there where I thought you're going to win this game at that moment on OT, not going on shootout where Panarin completely demystified Hart on the shootout. I don't know if you see that.
People blamed Hart yesterday because they said he was too passive. And I'm like, both of those shots were complete snipes from guys with quick triggers who could shoot. Like Kakko, his problem is he has to be able to get to the net because his skating's still not quite there. It's gotten better. So he has to get to the net. But once he's around the net, he's got great hands. And you see in a shootout situation, his hands are just phenomenal.
Of course, he was amazing. Like the 2 goals.
Nobody's stopping that shot. Nobody in the world.
He's so good.
At the Panarin shot, Carter never moved.
Right.
He and I think he was too much deep on his net. I think he should attack more Panarin because when he shoot, he was at half of the crease and it was over.
I think you know what it is. Like I think he just didn't get to react in time because that shot was the fastest shot that anybody shot.
You know, it reminded me a lot of Panarin, like Ryan O'Reilly on the wrist shot. O'Reilly have an amazing wrist shot. And I think Panarin is a kind of typical shot over there. So it was pretty good.
For a smaller guy, too, which is amazing.
Yep. I agree with you about that one. Let's finish this show. What are your expectations of both game this weekend? We know now Sunday they start 1 hour early because they expect sun with blue sky. But what do you expect? I know we had no fans. That's another thing. But what are your expectations for the weekend?
Well, it's fun to see the Vegas Golden Knights in it, right? They've been looking to get into the outdoor game for a while. So, you know, this is a home event for them. So that's cool. They actually found a place where ice will exist. Because if you remember, there was an outdoor game at Caesars Palace with the Kings and Rangers a long time ago when, like, Luke Robitaille was on the Rangers, I think, for that one.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that was, like, the first outdoor game that the NHL ever messed with. But for this one, I think it'll be fun. I love Colorado. Like, I don't think – if you remember the outdoor game at Wrigley, that was the fastest skating outdoor game we'd ever seen with the Blackhawks, with Kane and Taves, and the Red Wings with Datsuk. And it was just – that was spectacular. Like, it was almost like they were playing indoors. I think that game is going to feel that way. Vegas isn't as fast as Colorado, but I think Colorado – I don't think the ice is going to slow them down that much. Guys like Makar, he's adjust to everything. I covered it, you know, I covered Makar a lot. I covered him in – for his Hobie Baker, for the Frozen Four. I've seen a lot of Makar and actually in, you know, World Junior. So I do feel like Colorado's probably got the little bit of the edge, but you never know. The ice is the great equalizer there. It'll be interesting to see if Fleury gets out there because he's got more experience with outdoor games.
Well, they say Leonard's hurt.
Yeah, and if Leonard's still hurt, that may be a plus for Vegas because Fleury has dealt with that a lot more. On the Flyers side, Hart is the youngest. He'll be the youngest goalie to start in an outdoor game. It's interesting because he was supposed to start in the Stadium Series one a couple of years ago, and at the last minute they pulled him for Elliott, and Elliott did great, and he won the game. It was very important for the Flyers down the stretch to win that game because of the playoff drive that they were trying to make. So they made a decision on that one, and it worked out. I felt bad for Hart, but it was just the way it worked out. But this is a tough game for a young goalie to play outside, yes, I know he played the outdoor game in Buffalo in the World Juniors, but the talent level is so different. People who are writing that it's similar, it's not similar. It's completely different. It's other than saying I played outdoors. That's all you could say. So I do think there's a little edge in net for Boston because Rask has played outdoors, although this is the matchup game, right, from the Fenway series, and Tim Thomas was the goalie.
Oh, my God.
For Boston, it was not Tuukka Rask. So they can't go with that aspect of it. But Rask won in 2019 at Notre Dame, and he looked really good in doing it. And he seems completely locked in this year. I have to give the edge to the Bruins because the Flyers are missing so many of their top 6. But I do say the ice is the great equalizer. Things happen. There's bad bounces. Yeah. There's all kinds of things. A guy like Marchand, though, is very valuable in this. And even Bergeron, nothing stops Bergeron. It doesn't matter.
Nothing stops those two.
But Pasternak may not get the great chances that he normally gets or the perfect ice to shoot off of. So, it could affect a guy like that. The guy who gets aided on the Flyers is JVR. He's played in a ton of outdoor games between the Leafs and the Flyers. He has played in a lot of them. So he's got a ton of experience. He's actually having a nice rebound year and will play top line. So that's a plus for them. I still think Boston probably wins that one. But I do think it'll be entertaining. I don't know if it's going to get physical, though. I don't know. Unless they're going to have Sam Moran fight, there's not really going to be a matchup for Boston to necessarily fight unless, someone like Farabee just gets feisty with somebody, and which did happen once this year. No, but he did, though.
I know, stop.
Yeah. But the one thing about Farabee, I had good arguments with people because I tried to tell people after seeing him with the program that he had an elite shot, and people argued with me about that. Oh, now, after this year, they don't argue with me about it anymore.
Good. You were right, man. He's we've been watching him for a long time, and he's such a talented player.
He is. I still don't understand how they got him. I don't.
Well, this goes back to that Hextall thing.
Yeah, but great series. That playoff last year he was really good. People did not know him really well. And he flourished better during those playoffs. He just continues what he built from playoff last year. And I think I just want to bring to you because I watched the game, Colorado Vegas Thursday night last week, 1-0. I think it was Sunday night. It was maybe one of the best game of the year about speed, play, and it was only 1-0. Just give you that. Usually it's boring or not many chances. It was you have a lot of great opportunity, and then they play without Lestergaard, Joss, Makar, and Colorado did not give up and just tried more and more. So it will be very interesting to see the two great hockey teams this year, Vegas and Colorado.
I mean, the most underrated
better combination now.
What
have you seen? So I keep saying to Pierre, who's going to be better, Makar or Byram?
Okay, I'll tell you that in a minute. The one thing I'll say about Farabee, the most underrated part of his game right now is his puck distribution on the power play. It's maybe the best on the team.
Wow.
It used to be Giroux who's best on the team, and I think Farabee might actually be best at it now. Wow. He's been really good at that. And I get to see it close up because now the press box has been moved down 400 feet because of COVID.
Awesome.
I do think Makar is better than Byram. Obviously Byram will be more physical. Obviously, skating is really close, but Makar is a better skater. He is, to me. And it's maybe because of the edge work. I think Byram might be faster, but I think it's the edge work that makes Makar. But there's something about – I'll tell you what I saw in the Frozen Four that I had never seen since I was a little kid with Bobby Orr, and I only saw the Bobby Orr from 72 on, right? Other than, video after the fact. There's very few guys that, as a defenseman, can control a whole team as a quarterback. And that's what Makar does at times. He actually controls everything on the ice. When he's bringing it up on the ice, he knows exactly. Quinn Hughes does a lot of that too. But Makar even takes that to another level these days. And I feel like that's the difference between him and Byram. You may even tell me Byram's got a better shot, and I probably agree with you because I love the guy. But I do think Makar has that little extra something that is hard to define that maybe Byram doesn't have. But it's still – the fact that they have both is crazy.
I think that they're very, very close in both those departments, but it's exciting for Colorado fans.
Oh, yeah. They've been drafting great for years now. They've been drafting really well. But, again, I think right now I still put Quinn Hughes again ahead of Byram. And to me, it's going to take a little while for a guy like that to even get ahead of Hughes.
Maybe.
Just my personal.
It's exciting for Colorado.
My only problem about Quinn Hughes, I watched many games Vancouver because North Division, is defensive side. He need to improve. He need to be a little bit more physical because this side, carry on the puck, risk, vision, intelligence, everything you bring, he has it. He's a top, but on that side, where he struggled the most this year, he's not strong enough. He lost a lot of battle, and he's not at the right position. He did not learn. He's not enough understand right where he should be on the defensive side. Maybe the place too fast, whatever it is, but he can have everything to become a great defenseman in the NHL. He's 18 point, 19 point. Cannot complain about that part over there. But he's 20 years old?
I'll tell you who we should take a cue from. I got a lot of heat draft year for Sam Girard. People, I remember Mark Edwards was not happy with what I thought he was. And a lot of people didn't think. And my issue with Sam Girard was I said, look, he may not be great defensively, but he always has the puck, and he's going to always beat you to the puck. And so at the end of the day, that's his defense. And I do think Quinn Hughes can do that too. And I think that's his best way probably of playing defense is to be that way. And I think that will happen. He is a pretty good puck stripper. He's never going to be a physical guy. Like, you're never going to see – that's not going to happen.
It's funny you talk about this because every time I was talking like this, I was thinking about Girard in my head. So he came from Shawinigan where I was born, so I know a lot about him, everything like that. And I think is a great example. I think. And
people forget how small he is. Like every time someone says, a 5'6" guy can't play in the league, I'm like, well, how's Sam Girard doing it?
Yep. They find a way. Those players have a special skill and talent. They find a way to stay in this league and to be different other at that physicality they have in front of them. So I think there's a good point about this. We are almost conclude there. How the people can reach you? Because I think you have a lot of knowledge about hockey, and I think it'll be great to have you again, not only about game outside, because you know about prospect, you know about NHL, everything like that. So how the people can reach you if you can share with us?
Sure. You could, on Facebook, it's Russ Cohen. On Twitter, it's @Sportsology, sportsology.com online, Instagram, Sportsology. So those ways, I write for Elite Prospects, Full Press Hockey, Go GTS, which is a collectible site. I get into that because I have fun with collectibles as well. So yeah, all of those things. SiriusXM once a week with Mick Kern, sometimes twice a week with Boomer Gordon. So that way too. And then when it gets close to the draft, I'm usually on a lot more, and I'm certainly happy to come on and talk draft. We'll argue. I'm sure we're going to argue over guys, but that's good. I like that. You're the scout, so I really, at the end of the day, I can't say that I'm right and you're wrong. I'm not going to do that because you're a real scout. Either. I'm not.
But I think this is what you see when you have scouts in a room. Is if we don't argue, we don't get our player.
Right. Right. Yeah, you got to pound the table like Rockstrom did for Lundqvist. He pounded the table for 6 rounds. He wanted him from the first round on, and the Rangers kept saying no, 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 and then they finally took him.
Exactly, and that's what you see. Like we're all friendly, but we have to be competitive.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's a tough job, man. I'm amazed a lot of times with scouts. Some of these guys have great color-coded books. I couldn't do that.
It's crazy some of the
stuff. It's crazy some of the detail. I don't think people realize it. I think fans sometimes take it for granted. I do.
It's so difficult. It's so difficult for those people. How many times Trevor Timmons from Montreal? He's there since 2001, 2 and 3. But how many times the fans destroy him on the social platform? And you look at him, he's most time right or compare what he's losing, because Montreal problem, they always trade their first round pick from since 2012. You can go from Galchenyuk and Sergachev, and those players did not produce McCarron, everything like that. But not only the first round pick, it's after, I think, what you really feel who they do a great job is round 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Right.
That's really you can find how they develop those skills as a scout, I think, in NHL. I think that's what you should look about that. And that's what prove what Extall is. And Extall is a guy have a lot of details when he work. You can blame Mike Babcock, but look how the details he is about his job. Everything like that. So sometimes we don't look about this. You have such a great point here. about that part.
I'll tell you the one other thing I always tell people, and I really mean it, because Hockey Prospect Radio was all about having the scouts on, and I would learn stuff every show. Some of the AGMs would come on who really know their prospects too, and I would learn a lot. Right, I would listen more than I would even speak, and I talk a lot. But what I do learn is, like, even in a year of, like, Jack Hughes, I probably saw him 5 times in a year, which for me is a lot. And I say if I saw a guy 5 times, that means a scout saw him like 30 times.
Probably, yeah.
Definitely.
Well,
it was great having you, Ross, today.
Thank you so much, Ross.
I catch you at the last minute this morning, but we would love to have you. You're welcome to join us anytime. Honestly, it's every day, 11 o'clock Eastern time. But if you are free, you want to jump in anytime, you're welcome. Michael will be happy to having you, because we love to have guests like you.
Let Doug Sotard on, and then I'll come on, because I love Doug Sotard. So
he was the GM in Everett.
I do. So if you get him on, I'll be on, because I was a big fan when I was a Ranger fan. So there you go.
Okay, well, I'm sure we can. I've never worked with Doug. I worked under the Gary Davidson group, but
I never run into him, but I always appreciated his play when he came in. He was a pretty good goalie.
He was. I always liked him. Well, Russ, again, I'll echo what Frenchie said. Thank you so much for joining us. Come back anytime.
Thanks.
There was someone else I was going to mention, but I can't remember what it was. But I know. If you could nominate one person to join us on here, who would it be?
You mean like person like media or person like player?
As a guest that you can introduce us to.
I'll tell you the best guest right now that you could get on would be Shane Wright. Get Shane Wright.
Oh yeah. Okay. So Shane, there's a connection there to Zayd Wisdom, because they were line mates. And Shane is a Power Edge pro player like McDavid and Jack Hughes. So that's a great nomination.
Yeah, I interviewed his agent last year and got a lot of info about Shane, and probably will interview him this year.
Darren?
Yeah.
Oh, Darren Ferris reps him.
No, not Darren. No, sorry. It was at KO.
Oh, it's under. Okay, we know those guys really well.
I'm forgetting who it is right this minute, and he's probably going to kill me if he's watching. But oh well.
It's at KO. David, right? It's out of Toronto.
Yeah, it's outside. It's in Toronto. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Just curious, Ross, do you still doing your podcast? I know you said on.
I do. Yes, thanks. Sometimes, as much as I promote, I leave things out. There's one that we do weekly called Off the Post. It's on SoundCloud, Spotify, a lot of those networks. So we do that. I do a hockey buzzcast every day, like you guys do, usually at 1 o'clock, but today it's at 2 o'clock, because that's just what happened today. So I do that daily, Monday through Friday. I do a baseball one that comes out once every few weeks in the off season. Occasionally one on the New York Jets, all on my SoundCloud channel. You could look at Russ Cohen on SoundCloud, or Hockey Streams otherwise, and so you can pick up that too.
Awesome.
We look forward. Links, we'll post them. And then, so I mean, KO Sports is like, it's Oliver and Kurt Overhart, right?
Yeah, yes.
And I'm blanking on the name of the guy that's.
I know, and I am too, and I'm not gonna.
I can't remember.
I have to go to my phone, and it's like I'm already.
We'll figure it out. Russ,
thank you so much now.
Appreciate it.
You forget stuff.
Thanks again, Ross. Appreciate a lot. Good luck for everything you do. We definitely see you around here. We would love to have you. And one thing I love from you is you love the game. You have so much live inside of you, talking about the passion you have inside of you. So thanks again to join us today, and have an amazing, great weekend. Look forward to seeing you next time.
I appreciate it. Take care.
I appreciate a lot, Ross. Have a good one.